Hello, everybody. I'm trying to match your intros because you're just so gosh darn good at it. Jesse Montano, JJ Jerez, Guerilla Hockey. It's Friday afternoon. Not as nice of a day out today. A little bit more stormy and cloudy and rainy.
You know what I think about a lot?
Uh-oh.
No, it's good.
Okay.
The
Maybe
Christmas episode.
Maybe I don't want this pillow.
Yeah, those pillows stink. If you remember the Christmas episode that we did, I started it with like, "Hello, ho ho
Yeah.
ho ho,"
Yeah.
and your
Yeah.
reaction to that still lives in my brain because you loved it. You're like, "Oh, nice."
It was just because you went straight from hello. I was like, wow. What a thing to think of off the top of your head. Good for you.
Thank you.
How's your week been?
Fine, I guess. I mean, it's such a great week to be a sports fan, in my opinion. You
Yeah.
got the U.S. Open going on. The Euro is about to start. What is it? Today's the 14th, so I think next weekend Copa America starts, which is basically the Euro, but for this side of the world.
Yep.
And of course the Stanley Cup final going on, which for me has been fun to watch because A, it's a team that I like that's winning, and B, a team that I really don't like is losing. And so yeah, I think I've had a fun week sports wise. I'd say it's a little sports chub I've got going on.
Well, and the only part about it that's sad is that we are like 2 weeks away from all of that being over, and we've got baseball.
Yeah.
And then it's just baseball. I guess does soccer?
It goes
Euro
into like
soccer
early
run?
July.
Okay.
But you're right. There will be a point where it's all kind of dies down. I mean,
Yeah.
golf is a summer sport, so we always have golf. I know you're not super into golf. Not everybody is.
I'll watch it.
Um,
Again, I mean, you know me. Like I like summer. I like doing stuff that's outside. You and I played golf. I actually played the first like official official
It was 9 holes
round of
at a
golf
par 3.
that I've. But you know what I mean? Like I've
Yeah.
normally ever like gone to the driving range. I've gone and like driven the cart a couple times with friends, but like, I've never actually played. That was the first time I'm like, all right, we'll play this hole, then we'll go to the next hole. And it was partially you and I were just every hole like, God, this weather is just great. We were in LA.
Well, and the difference too for all my golfers out there, LA has more moisture to it, so when your ball would hit the green, it would stay there. Not only that, it like went an extra level to it, and it would literally crater into the green. Whereas here in Colorado, you hit the green, chances are you're rolling off unless you have really good control, which I don't. I'm not that good of a golfer.
Well, and it was right at our hotel because remember that was a long trip where we had to move from the hotel near the arena to a hotel out near the practice
A hotel
facility.
where we almost got robbed and were scared for our lives, to a hotel that had a golf course behind it. Was like
I would actually like to point out that we weren't scared for our lives. We were retrospectively like, ooh, we should have been more concerned about our lives. Yeah. We stayed in downtown LA. No one told us like, ooh, don't do that.
the season opener.
Yeah, first game of the
Time
year.
I'll never forget.
But yeah, then we moved to that because then the LA Kings practice facility is out in Manhattan Beach, way nicer than downtown LA. So we went and stayed out there because it was kind of far away, and there was a golf course at our hotel. So I'm getting into it. I was just telling my wife the other day we should try getting into golf. It just seems like a great way to get outside.
Yeah, exactly. I love that, and it's a great way to feel bad about yourself as well.
Great way to feel bad about yourself as well. Okay, well let's. There's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about. Just general NHL hockey. I'm gonna sneeze. I think.
Well, before you do, let me ask you
Perfect,
this:
'cause I'm gonna sneeze.
watching the Stanley Cup final, are you a little bit, I don't know, disappointed with how lopsided it's been?
Well, hold on. I want to get to the Stanley Cup Finals in a second. I just
Okay.
want to talk about there's a tiny bit of housekeeping news. I didn't really talk much about it on Twitter or anything like that. One, it's a guy that I was having to do a little bit more research on, and I think it's just going to be kind of interesting to see where he kind of fits. But the Avs do sign 26-year-old Jiri Inala, Finnish player coming over from Europe, played in obviously men's leagues last year. He's 26 years old, led the SHL in points in the playoffs. I believe it was 28 points in 46 games regular season, if my memory serves me right. Sorry, I've got a bunch of stuff pulled up on him here, but
Is that how you pronounce his name? You know that for a fact?
Inola. I mean,
No,
that
first name.
Yuri.
That's what I like about him because
Yuri, yeah.
Jere
Yeah.
is how,
Jerez.
and my first name Jeremy.
Oh yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
literally Jeremy, Jerez is
Mhm.
my full name. So he's already off to a good start in my book. But that's the limit of what I know.
I believe
about him.
I believe it's Yuri. 5'9", so not a big dude. 183. This is definitely a smaller player. But look, the Avs love the Finns. Mikko's always pushing for it. So played with Frölunda last year. So it was 28 points in 42 games. Sorry, I said 46. 42 games. He played in the Liga a couple years before that. 48 points in 54 games. So this is a guy that has some offensive touch.
Do you have goals in front of you, or is it just points? Sorry.
I did. No, you're good. Sorry, this is great podcasting here. Sorry, I just had all this.
That's my fault.
No, you're good. 16 goals in 42 games last year. So this is a guy who's got some scoring touch. He's playing, in the SHL. Those are pro leagues against quality opponents.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not the NHL. It's not the KHL. It's not even the AHL. But these are good players. These are good teams, veteran guys, big, strong, fast. This to me is probably going to be a AHL, NHL call-up kind of guy.
It's a shot. I don't want to call it a shot in the dark, right? Because there's obviously research, there's scouting that goes into it, but it's them trying to bolster that prospect group that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks that has been slacking. And not only that, it might continue to slack considering the moves that they're going to have to make here in the near future. So they're just trying to put some bodies that may or may not have a shot. I mean, that's kind of what their MO has been there in the AHL, I think, for the last couple of years. Is this guy may pan out to be an NHLer, he might be an AHL lifer, but either way, we're going to see what transpires here, what develops.
Well, we've talked about it, and look, he's 26, so he's a little bit older than your typical prospect that you're bringing in, but we've talked about it a bunch, JJ. The Avs, look, criticize him. Everyone to criticize him for the development and, missing on guys beyond the second round. Sure, you can do whatever you want. This is how they've supplemented missing on some of those prospects like this is by finding guys in Europe, finding college free agents, et cetera, et cetera.
And it's worked out in the past. Look at Pavel Francouz, right? This is exactly how they found him.
Yeah.
And he ended up being a fantastic addition. So, yeah, obviously too early to call, but I appreciate the roll of the dice.
Yeah, and again, it's like, look, if you want to be realistic with yourself, we talk about this. We were just talking about this the other day. You're talking about third, fourth round picks. Those players aren't really having I'd say third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, if you get anything out of them at any point, you feel amazing. But third, fourth, fifth, you're really not seeing those players hit your NHL roster till they're 23, 24 anyways. So it's not like this is some huge reach. You got some guy that's way older, already in the back half of his career. Like you said, I'm with you. I like it purely from the standpoint of it's a move to bring in someone to add to the organization.
Potential depth loading, right? Obviously, they're not bringing in anybody to slide into the top six. That's not their priority right now. They're looking to add bodies that could maybe or maybe not fill in roles.
Yeah, exactly. Think Kiviranta type guy.
Yeah.
All right, so that's kind of it for the Avs. Right now, we are, like almost 2 weeks, I think, exactly from the draft. And then free agency comes right after that. So I imagine there's going to be a lot more movement on the horizon. But this is kind of their first domino of the offseason. That's not really the offseason yet. We were talking about that earlier. Still feels like we're in season a bit here at the Stanley Cup Final going on, but that may not be for very much longer. Florida Panthers take a 3-0 series lead last night, JJ. You've been watching these games?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what else am I going to do? This is I love hockey. Hockey's my passion, and these are the only hockey games available to watch. But as I mentioned, I like the Florida Panthers. I have for several years now. So, yeah, absolutely tuned in.
And dude, for me, I just like seeing small markets have success
Mm-hmm.
because that's how you grow the game, and that's how you get more people involved. That's how you add more fans, all of that. So yeah, I like the fact that we have 3 years in a row, President's Trophy, Stanley Cup Final for the Florida Panthers, and I think you're seeing the impact it's having on the fan base down there, and that's only good for the league, the game of hockey, the Florida Panthers themselves. So I'm with you. I'm very dialed into this because I think it's great to see what the Panthers are doing.
Imagine telling someone in the 70s, maybe even the mid 80s, that the 5 Stanley Cup champions are going to come from Tampa Bay, Colorado, Las Vegas,
Florida.
South Florida. They'd be like, what the heck is hockey doing in any of those places?
Right.
So, yeah, as far as growth of the game, it's absolutely great, despite it being a little underwhelming to watch, I think. I mean, it's been very lopsided.
Well, I mean, these first 3 games, like, look, I want to fully get into this series once it's done. However it ends, I want to unpack a lot of it because as it stands right now, I have a lot of thoughts on how this is played out. But I want to see what Florida does, or excuse me, what Edmonton does here. I want to see if they have any fight in them because through 3 games. This can obviously change. You still got to win one more if you're Florida. It's not done. You got Connor McDavid over there. A lot can happen. I'm by no means saying this is done, close it, or let's move on.
I am.
But through 3 games, the Edmonton Oilers do not look like they belong anywhere near a Stanley Cup final.
No, and I think that happens sometimes in finals, right? I mean, one team runs through their respective conferences and sometimes leads to a more, and I don't want to call it boring because it's not boring. It's just not amazing hockey on both sides, right? You look back to the Avs' first cup. And then 96, and it was supposed to be the Penguins to come out of the Eastern Conference. They get upset by the Florida Panthers. We get Avalanche versus the Panthers, and it's a sweep. Not really exciting at all. But then you look at the 2001 Cup, and I think that was a series that we'll all remember forever because that felt like the 2 best hockey teams in the NHL going head-to-head. So sometimes you get lucky with an awesome final, and sometimes you have a little bit underwhelming, right? It's going on in the NBA as well. Just not the 2 best teams facing off because someone got knocked off in the process on the road to the final, and this is what you get stuck with. So sometimes it feels like the final really was Florida versus the Rangers.
See, but like now here's where I want to make sure that we're giving appropriate credit to the Panthers. As much as I again, and I want to wait to see how it all shakes out because I want to see if Edmonton has any guts in them. You know what I mean? Any life to push back. And I imagine they will. Right? These are pro athletes. They're proud players. But like my biggest takeaway from these 3 games is exactly what you and I talked about before these finals started. I do not think people fully understood how good the Florida Panthers are.
Yeah.
We can sit here and talk about the Oilers, and believe me, if this series wraps up tomorrow, I will have plenty to say about the Edmonton Oilers. But I texted you before the game yesterday, and I said, hey, just so you know, right now on the different betting apps, I said that the Panthers are dogs right now. Like the Oilers are favored to win this game. They were plus 120. The Panthers were. And you said, yeah, but the Oilers probably push back. And my answer to you was, I was like, I don't know. I just watching this Florida team, I said, I think they're too mature. Like, I don't like this Florida team does not seem like a team that will be over. Last year, they looked overwhelmed by the moment. They went on this crazy miracle run from 8 seed to the Stanley Cup final, and they got to the Cup final, and it just seemed like this is too much. They weren't able to treat it as like just another game. Go out there and win. Keep doing what you were doing. They seemed overtaken by the moment. This year, game 1, game 2, when Edmonton has had their push, I think it was game 1 where Edmonton kind of controlled things. Yeah. Florida never looked flustered. They never looked bothered, and they never wavered from their structure and their plan. And they were able to push back, get the goal, close it out, win the game. And then game 2, Connor McDavid has the comment after game 1 of, hey, maybe that was just, hockey gods getting us back because we probably didn't deserve to win game 6. So there we go. It's all even. So that game 2, you were expecting all right, they're going to push back and they're going to try to get that game. And Florida just squashed that. I mean, Edmonton, what did they end up with? I think it was the fewest shots in Stanley Cup final history is what Edmonton finished game 2 with. Just nothing being created, no momentum, no threat, nothing. Florida just took that game completely over after Edmonton scored on their first shot of the game. No panic, no fluster, no running around on that Florida bench. And they come out last night, and there was 2 things that I thought were interesting about the game last night, the start of the game. One was, again, you were expecting the big Edmonton Oilers push to start the game. Not that they were better than they were in game 2, but they did not seem like this ultra desperate team finally back on home ice. If you also remember, you and I talked during the first round of what I like about going to some of these games in Canada is the fans are really smart. They understand the circumstance and the moment and all of that. It seemed, even coming through the TV, it seemed tense in that building last night. It seemed like those were fans who had watched the first 2 games and understood it's going to take a miracle and an all-time gargantuan moment from McDavid and Draisaitl, because those are only 2 players. It's going to take a massive effort from those 2 to get us back in this series. And it felt like the crowd, like that was the tension in the crowd, was they understood what was happening. And when the Oilers weren't able to come out and immediately get on their toes, you knew they were in trouble last night.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still a glimmer of hope in game 3, right? Like, well, now we're in our home barn. We could still make this an even series and head back to Florida, tied at 2. And I think circumstances would have given Florida every excuse to maybe drop the ball in game 3, right? They had a tough time leaving Florida because of some flooding, weather issues. Of course, the tough travel, right? This is the furthest distance between 2 cities in a Stanley Cup final ever. I think that's not something to just brush off. And then heading to Edmonton, maybe a little more of an intense crowd, a crowd that's really bought in, understands the game, and facing arguably the best player in the NHL in his home ice. I think, that there are reasons that I think Florida could have came out and laid an egg. They didn't.
Yep.
Bobrovsky, I think, is a huge reason for that.
Yeah.
Whether or not he's the Conn Smythe front runner, we'll get into that in a second. But they held off the Oilers and then ended up getting out of that first period up 1-0.
Up 1-0.
And I think that was devastating for Edmonton.
Yeah.
And then if you really look back, what was it, up until the third period, maybe late in the second, Edmonton had scored 2 goals the entire series. In 3 games. I thought that the game was going to end like that. It was going to be a 4-1 final, and then we can look back here. Wow, through 3 games, Edmonton's only scored 2 goals. Yeah. Well, the what do they call that? When the losing team kind of takes control of the puck.
Garbage time?
Yeah, there's a hockey analytics term for it. It's escaping me right now. But they were able to kind of control.
Score effects.
Score effects. Thank you. And that kind of took control, and they were able to bury a couple and give everybody a little glimmer of hope. I not even when they made it 4-3, I was never like, oh, they're going to tie it here.
Right.
I was like, cool, it's going to end 4-3, maybe 5-3 with an empty net. So, yeah, I mean, it's just been a scenario for me where, like you're saying, Florida's showing their maturity. They're showing how this has been a long road for them.
Yeah.
It's not just a glimmer in the pan or a flash in the pan from this season. They've been building up to this for years and years and years, and like you said, it's showing its face right now.
Well, like, let's go back to the because I really do this Florida team, and again, like you said, the path, they've been kind of silently knocking on the door for the last handful of years. It feels a little bit like the Avs from a couple of years ago. Like when that playoff run started in 2022, there was like everyone in the press box kind of like collectively knew like we're going to be here for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then the further and further they went, it just felt like, yeah, they're not going to lose. And even when they, going into the Cup final, like they were playing against Tampa, a great team going for the three-peat. But there was this just like, they'll figure it out. Like they'll find a way to win. And I feel like it was that sense of confidence that the team had, that the team was exuding, that was almost kind of like rippling throughout the fan base and media and stuff like that, where it was just like, yeah, these guys just are showing up expecting to win.
There's also, do you believe in magic?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
There's also a sense of magic, right? Once they got over that Blues, the second round hump, the way they did it too with Darren Helm, you felt like, okay, there's something special going on. Not just that they're playing good hockey, but they have something on their side.
Yeah.
And you felt that all along with Florida as well. They've not only played good hockey, but it seems to be, as somebody points out here, Ryan Bolding. Florida is the team of destiny, and it definitely feels that way. Hello, Ryan. By the way.
I'm gonna grab my laptop so I can do some stuff. I'm gonna go grab it from right there, and these hockey cards that we gotta open.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Oh, hi, Mark.
So yeah, I think there's just that little sense of magic that the Florida Panthers seem to just have, that the Avalanche had that year. That's just necessary to winning.
Well, and having that leads to the confidence, and it's all kind of just a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like this is a Florida team, like you and I talked about before this series got started, that I think was being discounted at how mature and how deep. Like they're not an old team necessarily, but like Alexander Barkov, been around for a long time. Matthew Tkachuk has now been around for a long time. Aaron Ekblad, been around. Sam Reinhart, been around. Sergei Bobrovsky has won 2 Vezinas. He's been around.
Kyle Okposo, I think, is a subtle.
Kyle Okposo, former captain, right? Evan Rodriguez, he's been around.
That's here. You can go ahead and grab your things. Yeah. Evan Rodriguez, I know you and Megan talked about him quite a bit when you guys were doing your show. But, wow, talk about gambling, right? We love gambling here at Guerilla Sports. Oh, yeah. What a gamble from Evan Rodriguez. He basically put his futures bet in on the offseason and said, I think Florida's the best place for me. Because, the Avalanche liked him here. He liked being here. There were conversations had about him staying here. I don't know exactly what unfolded, but obviously there was something about Florida that he said, no, I want to go there. Not only is it money related, but I see potential in this team. And boy, was he right. And how fun is it to see a guy that we got to know last year, that we were talking to 12 months ago face to face. Now we're watching him not only be in the Stanley Cup, but thrive, right? He's been maybe their biggest, aside from Bobrovsky, their biggest X factor so far in these finals. And
dude, for sure in the finals, absolutely in the finals. And like a great dude too. Yeah, like us getting to know him a bit. Like he was always willing to chat, always willing to have just the extra conversation. On the record, off the record, like he was always fantastic. And like you said, he's bet on himself 2 years in a row.
Right.
Because before he came to the Avs, were you going to make this point?
No.
Before he came to the Avs, him and his agent thought, we're going to be able to cash on this big deal. The big deal never really materialized. Suddenly he's kind of left out, in the cold, waiting for a deal. The Avs were able to get him for cheap. Has a great year here. And really kind of, I think, elevated his stock beyond what it was. So bet on himself there. And then to your point, probably had a lot of teams that were interested. And as of right now, barring something crazy, looks like he might have picked right.
Yeah, and that's got to be such a good feeling. Like, I made the right choice, right? You think back to Jerome McGinley and maybe what he's thinking about the last few years of his career. Like, shoot, I thought I saw the potential here. I maybe made the wrong choice. Or it's like you look at Obe Kubel from the 2022.
Yeah.
He was a waiver pickup. The Avs got him on waivers.
Yeah.
And, he was like, wow, that was awesome. I can't believe I got so lucky there. I was trying to remember, but I kind of stopped thinking about it. Didn't really look it up. What free agents came in before that 2022? So the offseason of 21 came into the Colorado and were like, wow, what a great decision that was for me.
Free agents. Jack Johnson. Who are you going to say?
No, I was just going to say I don't want to put you on the spot. If,
No.
If you don't wanna...
I'm trying to just like kind of in my head run through the lines really fast. Jack Johnson was for sure one of them. I think a lot of that roster was Darren Helm was another one. Who was that summer?
Yep.
I think there was a lot of that roster that was trades. It's like Kadri had been here.
Yep.
Cogliano was a deadline acquisition
from the year before. Yeah.
No, from that year, from the Cup year.
Oh.
Yeah, he was a Cup year acquisition.
Okay.
Yeah. Manson was a trade
from the year before.
Nope, from that year.
Man, why do I think everything's from the year before?
No, you're right. Lehkonen was a trade.
Yep.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that was a pretty. Kemper was also a trade. I don't think there were a lot of just like straight free agents.
Yeah.
Like I said, Helm, Jack Johnson.
Well, I think Helm is the perfect example, right? He's the one. He's towards the end of his career, had to make a decision. Wow, if I want to make one more Cup run here, because he won one early in his career. Yeah. By the time he's later in his career, he's like, if I'm going somewhere, I got to go somewhere that's
2008. I think was his Cup. Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome stuff from those kind of guys.
Dude, now you just got my mind racing here. I'm gonna have to go back and look. And maybe I'll do that while we're talking.
Which makes you think the other side of the coin, right? Corey Perry, how he continues to almost make the right decision, and he's getting so close so many times.
Well, he's almost becoming you don't want that on your team.
Yeah.
Like,
you're going to make it to the final, but you're not going to get there. Obviously, that's not how it works, but it just makes you think of the guys that make the right decision versus the guys that don't necessarily make the right decision.
So let's talk a little bit more about because there's this comment in here that says this series is showing how easy the Oilers' route was and them barely facing any adversity, 0 injuries, etc. Watching the Panthers system versus the Oilers is night and day. I don't want to talk about the first part of that yet because, like I said, I want to wait to see what happens here. This series isn't over, and the theme of this entire playoffs has been the Oilers proving me wrong, that they've been able to, fight back and overcome, and it looked like they were going to be down and out against the Canucks, and they battle back. I thought the Stars were going to make quick work of them, and they find a way to come out in that series. So I want to wait. So I want to talk about the Panthers system, because you and I talked about that forecheck of theirs and just how unrelenting that forecheck can be. And watching these first 3 games, I cannot believe how many pucks they are turning back at the offensive blue line and keeping plays alive and keeping zone time and keeping pressure. And it just seems like they are constantly picking pucks off out high, dumping the puck back down low. And there's already a Panthers player there waiting for it.
Or even, I think it was the second goal last night where Stuart Skinner just tries to pass it over to his D-man behind the net, and there's a Panther guy there, beats him to the puck. And obviously there's a little element of Stuart Skinner making a mistake there, but that's also the relentlessness. They just beelined it straight for that puck.
And for a team like Edmonton, who's built so much around speed and pace, like, holy smokes, does it seem like they are really struggling with the speed and pace. Bolding chiming back in. Top line of Edmonton is MIA, only depth producing as a result of Panthers defending. The opposite is not the case. Like, I made the comment to you before the series started, and it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek of like, let's see if the Oilers can win the Stanley Cup with 2 players. Can they become the first team to win the Stanley Cup truly on the backs of 2 players? You can throw Evan Bouchard in there if you want. Like, the production has been there, but I mean, he's fully on the sled being pulled by the other 2 guys. So, can they do it? Can it really be? They've gotten through 3 rounds, relying almost exclusively on these 2 guys. Can they keep it going? And there was a shift that I watched last night where I use this analogy, not analogy. I talk about this a lot where when hockey players get frustrated, they're not taking better shots. They're just taking harder shots. And that's kind of like a microcosm of like, I was watching this shift and I believe it was 1-0, and just how hard McDavid was skating. And there was 2 shifts in a row where he skated the puck from behind his own goal line all the way into the Panthers end. One time he took a shot. Another time he like circled the net, threw the puck through the crease, and no one was there. And I said, and you could see he was digging in hard. He took a slap shot. I don't know if you noticed that. He wound up and took a slap shot from the slot at one point. And I said, these guys are so frustrated. There's no room. And Connor McDavid's trying to do it himself.
Yeah, desperate times call for desperate measures, right? And before that game, part of my parlay, I threw the over on Connor McDavid's shots because that's exactly what I saw coming. Hey, these guys are going to be trying so hard to make things happen. And in hockey, what do? You simplify. You throw pucks at the net, right? Yep. Classic hockey phrase. Just throw pucks at the net. Good things will happen. There's a little bit of truth to that. But if there's just no rhyme or reason and you're just throwing pucks at the net and they're hitting the goalie in the stomach, that's not going to get it done. There's so many more things that you need to get traffic. You need to get guys there for rebounds. It's not just simply throwing pucks at the net at the NHL level. Yeah, I'm with you. It's just a little bit of desperation from Edmonton, just trying to make anything happen when they seemingly don't really have very many answers. That's exactly, you're spot on.
And that's typically the type of stuff where, Connor McDavid, he even told reporters before the game, as the series goes on, we usually figure out power plays. We're gonna be a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more freelancing out there. Like, that is not the strategy I would deploy there.
Yeah.
Hey, we're getting our asses handed to us by this team that is 50 times more structured than we are. Let's break structure even more. Let's just go out there and let's just act crazy. Let's just start doing whatever we want. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
No.
He's so stoic, Connor McDavid. It's hard to really get a read on what he's thinking. But when you watch his game, maybe you get a little bit of a hint into what's going on in his mind. And I think right now I'm the only one that can do anything.
Yeah. Well, and I saw someone today. So there's another comment from Bolding about.
Yeah, Bolding's active. How you doing, Bolding? Must not be very busy at his other job today.
We should have Bolding in here.
We absolutely should.
Yeah, Bolding, come in and do a show with us. Come right now.
We have 2 other chairs. I mean, we could get easily Evan and Bolding, or Arif and Megan. We could whole jambalaya.
They all come in and we just all sit on the floor and do it.
Or we have
crisscross applesauce.
Evan, Megan, Arif, and Bolding, and we could just watch from the side.
Yeah. Wow, great show, you guys. This is good stuff. But, I saw a comment this morning that said Chris Knobloch has 4 moves. Put the 2 best players together. Split the 2 best players up. Put the 2 worst players together. Split the 2 worst players up. And again, that's obviously maybe a little bit harsh, but like, really, what Bolding was talking about there was like, at one point in that game, he had Draisaitl and McDavid out there with Perry. And then at another point, he had Draisaitl and McDavid out there with McLeod. It really does, like, there's just, we hear Jared Bednar talk about it ad nauseum, about depth. We need depth. We need depth. We need to be healthy. It's impacting our depth. You have to have depth to win in this league. And this is why I made the comment before the series started about, can Edmonton truly do this with just 2 players? Because obviously that's obviously insulting to all the other guys on the roster, right? There's guys out there that are working hard. Zach Hyman scored, tapped in however many goals he tapped in this year. But like you look at guys like Bouchard and Hyman that I know Edmonton Oilers fans would point to and be like, look, what about these guys? Those 2 guys, look, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. They're made. Those 2 players, Zach Hyman and Evan Bouchard, are products of Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. They are. Just, you can go look at the numbers. The numbers support what I just said. Edmonton is having to roll the big 5, Bouchard, Ekholm, McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins. They're having every other shift. They're having to roll those guys every other shift, and that's why I feel like you've seen these games. All 3 games have pulled away near the end.
I think there's one scenario where that would work, and that's if Edmonton had the better goalie in the series, right? I think you could get away with so much more if they had the guy, who's fighting for the Conn Smythe in net. But they don't. I think they're getting so out-goalied right now, too, and that's a major problem for Edmonton, a major plus for Florida, and I think that alone has been a big difference maker.
But that right there just comes back to by the way, yes, I did look this up. There was one additional, and it was exactly who we have right here. Ryan Murray was the other free agent signing that summer before the Avs won the Cup. But speaking of the Avs winning the Cup, like the hallmark of that team was we can roll all 4 lines late. We can go late. Darren Helm scores the goal to send the Avs to the 3rd round with however many seconds left in a tie game that was about to head to overtime, and the 4th line was out there. Like Jared Bednar was more than comfortable rolling all 4 lines, keeping guys fresh for as late as games needed to go. When it got to the Stanley Cup final, that was still what he was doing, and you were going up against Andrei Vasilevsky, and the Avs just wore the Lightning down over the course of that series. I think that's what you're seeing here too. And the larger issue, because yes, I agree with what you're saying. The larger issue is that Edmonton doesn't have an NHL number 1.
Right.
Like it was laughable when people had Stuart Skinner as a finalist for Rookie of the Year last year. Anyone who watched him knew he wasn't actually that good. He played behind a really high-powered offensive team, and yeah, he came in and picked up a bunch of wins and stuff like that. But like we talked about it earlier, you had Calvin Pickard starting multiple games when Stuart Skinner was healthy and available in these playoffs. You were always going to have a goaltending issue. You had a goaltending issue through every round in these playoffs. You've just been able to outscore those problems. And now you've run up against a team that is as complete as any Stanley Cup champion in the last 10 years. And I think you're seeing the product of this is a team that people have, really kind of talked themselves into being a contender because of how good they are at the top, at the very tippy top. But you're really starting to see the fatal flaws. And again, there is still, this series is not over. Yes, it's 3-0. Yes, Edmonton's going to have to do a reverse sweep to win this and go on the road and win a bunch of games and all that. It's all still possible. So there's a chance that I would have to eat all of these words and say, they proved me wrong. They really were better. 2 players can win the Stanley Cup.
Possible, not plausible.
It just feels like what we've seen here through the first 3 games is, yes, this is every flaw that everyone has been pointing about this Edmonton Oilers team being exploited to the largest degree possible.
To keep drawing the comparisons to 2022, imagine if those 2 goalies switched nets. Kemper was in net for Lightning, and Vasilevsky was in net for Colorado. That's how I feel this series is going on.
Okay, yeah.
Right? You got the team not only deeper, but they also have the better goalie.
Yeah.
You got the team that is good, but not great, and they have just a shakier goalie. So,
yeah. No, I think that's because with all due respect to Darcy Kemper, you and I have said several times, I think he was very underappreciated for how well he actually played in Colorado. If you swap those 2, it's probably a sweep in 2022.
Right.
So I think that's a great point. Florida just looks like a team that has truly been knocking on the door for 3 years, and they went through the heartbreak last year, and they look poised to close us out. And I mean, really, you're going to expect as good of an effort from the Edmonton Oilers as you can get. I think right now it's hard to pick against the Panthers, even in Game 4, because like they just look that much better.
Yep.
It doesn't look like a matter of desperation and intensity levels. They just look that much better.
Yeah, it also just makes you shake your head a little bit at what went on here in Colorado, the way they had to bow out of the playoffs, or even the Dallas Stars. How, man, if Dallas could have just gotten through there, it would have been a much better final.
Right.
But again, that's just the way finals shake out sometimes, right? Look at the Nuggets last year. They ended up playing the Miami Heat. Once you saw the Miami Heat beat the Boston, I almost called them the Bruins, the Boston Celtics, you're like, this is the Nuggets all day long.
Yeah. Well, so here's a who should the Oilers have gotten in net? So you and I were talking just before we started doing the show with Jay. Jay was asking about, do players in the AHL make much money? And we were saying, for the most part, not really. You know, it's your typical like kind of living day job wage.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some exemptions, players who have been in the AHL for a long time. And I said, and you have the even more rare exceptions of players who signed one-way deals whose play just craters. And you kind of got to bury that in the AHL, and you have to pay him the full amount. Like Jack Campbell, who is currently playing for the Bakersfield Condors, Edmonton's AHL affiliate, to the tune of 5 years, $5 million. He didn't even make it through one full season in Edmonton before they sent him down to the AHL and are now cutting him a check for $5 million every year. The Edmonton Oilers, look, like, it's easy to say, oh, they should have someone else. Like, you know, I'm saying they should have a better goalie. That's easy to say. My thing with it is this. It's the incompetence and, in my opinion, the arrogance of the management there that has said, our players are just good enough that the fine details of building a team don't really matter. They don't apply to us. We're the Edmonton Oilers. We used to have Wayne Gretzky. We had a dynasty, and now we got our new Wayne Gretzky. We got Connor McDavid. It's just we don't need to build a team properly like everyone else. We can pass Matthias Ekholm off as a number one that can go head to head with Aaron Ekblad and Victor Hedman and Cale Makar and Alex Pietrangelo. Yeah, he's that good. Evan Bouchard, he's a number one guy. He's horrific in his own end. He's Tyson Barrie with a harder shot, but he's a number one. He's a true number one because we have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, so we don't have to pay attention to how we actually build this team. And they've gotten away with it because those two players are that special. They've outscored a lot of their problems. And you do give Chris Knobloch credit for bolstering the defensive prowess of the team in general. But 2 years ago, the Avs said, we need a goaltender. We need a goaltender that we feel confident in. We moved on from Philip Grubauer. And did the Avs pay more for Darcy Kemper than they would have liked to? Absolutely. Absolutely. They overpaid for a goaltender they ended up getting 1 year out of. But he won them a Stanley Cup. No one in that organization cares anymore that they overpaid. The Edmonton Oilers haven't ever gone out and seriously addressed their goaltending problem. There have been countless options over the last handful of years for them to go out and seriously address it. They got themselves into a situation this year where at the deadline, people were saying they need a goaltender, but they were too cash-strapped. They sent Jack Campbell down to the AHL and immediately went out and spent that money. And then they went and added Evander Kane when they didn't need to. And they added Corey Perry when they didn't need to. And they did all this stuff that took up money and took up roster spots, and they never seriously added a goaltender or someone who they thought was a true contending goaltender. They've talked themselves in at the highest levels of, it's good enough.
Dustin Schwartz. Do you know who that is? That's the goaltending coach / consultant for the Edmonton Oilers. Not only is he their current goaltending coach / consultant, he's been there for 10 seasons, right? This is the guy that needs the finger pointed directly at him and said, you're the one that's making all these terrible decisions. Where's the consulting? Mm-hmm. What's going on here? You got us Mike Smith, and look where that got us. Now here we are with Jack Campbell. Like, what are you doing? I think he's the guy that's got to get canned. They got to find themselves a better version of that.
Or you also have to, because we don't understand, we don't know the ins and outs. They're either not consulting with him, or
he's an idiot.
Right. And look, I think not Ken Hitchcock. Who's the why is his name completely escaping my mind? Their GM. Oh my God, Ken Holland. Like, I think he's retiring after this year anyways. And like,
they all got to get out. They got to clean.
They went from
shop there.
Peter Chiarelli to Ken Holland, And both of those guys have shown they don't know how to build a team in the modern NHL. They've this Oilers team should be going for their like second or third Stanley Cup, given the glut of talent that is just oh my God, falling into their lap at the draft. They got Leon Draisaitl third. Like the players that have literally just been here, take this player for free. Here, we rigged the draft lottery for you to have Connor McDavid. Take it. Your first overall pick, we don't care. Have it. And the fact that they're still fumbling around in the dark to try to complete this roster, and you know they've backed their way into a Stanley Cup final, and something tells me that that's going to convince management there, like, oh, we're right there. We are right there. We don't really need to change anything. Stuart Skinner's the answer. And again, if they come back and win this Stanley Cup by winning 4 straight games, and they become like the second team ever to overcome a 3-0, I will gladly say I was wrong. The Edmonton Oilers know what they're doing, and blah, 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 blah. But it just looks like they got up against a team that's truly built to contend, and they aren't.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even Michael Jordan took a few years to get a team around him and really become the Bulls that we knew from the 90s. But you drew the comparison, the easy comparison. Wayne Gretzky was in Edmonton as well, and even he was like at one point, I'm getting out of Edmonton. Is there a point where Connor McDavid finally says, you know what? So everyone around me is making this impossible. So
here's what I'll say, and I wanted to save this till after we saw if this series ended in 4 or 5 games. But if let's say if this series ends either tomorrow or Game 5 back in Florida, that will be 3 straight years where the Edmonton Oilers can say we were eliminated by the eventual Stanley Cup champion. But if this series plays out the way that I just said, all 3 of those series were non-competitive. The Oilers were run out of the building in all 3.
Yep.
So to me, that's almost a step back of like, okay, well, how close are you actually?
Yeah.
Because when you're getting up against the teams that are not only the contenders, but that are winning, you're not in the same class.
And when you're playing the LA Kings in the first round every year.
The LA Kings and the Vancouver Canucks, who no one expected to be here. And so it's like, you know, how really are you really that close? And suddenly Leon Draisaitl is eligible for an extension this summer. Are these players going to start to step back and say, like, what's the plan here?
Right.
What are we doing? I know Connor McDavid has that quote from a few years ago where he says, you know, we got 6 years to get this figured out. And, you know, that's the length of his contract. So I don't know, you know, like, is that something where they're looking around going, if you guys aren't going to start taking this build seriously, then we're moving on?
Or it's not that they're not taking it seriously. They're just taking misstep after misstep. Like,
see, I don't think they're taking it seriously. I think that they're saying we got the 2 best players. They'll get us through most of it. They'll get us through most of it.
I think they're convincing themselves that, like, yeah, this is Stuart Skinner's the guy we needed to make this final run. Jack Campbell's the person that we just had to insert into this lineup, and now we're ready. I think they are just lying to themselves. I don't think they're like, meh, we're good.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like, in my opinion, going out and, you know, picking up every player whose contract is terminated and shit like that, that's not taking your build seriously. The Avs went out and said, not only do we have a specific style that we want to play, but there's a specific type of player that we want to attract. There's a certain type of culture that we want to build in our locker room. We're going to do that through the players that we bring into the organization. And, you know, we're going to have guys like Eric Johnson playing on our third pairing, who is the face of this, you know, organization's decor for years. They went out and added guys like Andrew Cogliano not because of what he brings on the ice, to how he fits in the culture and the work ethic and stuff like that. And they identified players like Arturi Lehkonen, who were not considered to be the big fish at trade deadline, but said, this is a player who archetypes and fits the way that we want to play, the style that we want to play. We went out and, you know, for 2022 at least, we took a gamble on Val Nichushkin. This is a guy who was out of the league because we saw that structurally and the way that he played and the things that he was good at, we're also good at. Adding Evander Kane because he got cut by the Sharks, like, he can score goals, add him in there. Corey Perry, he can score goals on the 4th line, add him in there. Like, They're just, it just has felt to me like the Edmonton Oilers add players for the sake of adding them.
Yeah.
Matthias Ekholm to come be your anchor? Like, come on, be serious with yourself. That's not a true number 1D anchor. And there's the person who's commenting in here that, like, yes, number 1 goalies are hard to come by. Number 1 defensemen, teams aren't just giving those away. But that's what I'm talking about, where it's like, be serious with the cost of doing business on one of those.
Right.
You don't have a number 1 defenseman and you don't have a number 1 goalie. Continuing to just add forwards because you think they can put pucks in the net while not addressing real serious needs of your team, to me, is not taking it seriously and just saying, can we score enough goals to win? And so,
or like I keep bringing up Mike Smith, right? The addition of Mike Smith and telling yourself, this is the piece we needed.
Right.
When if you just look at Mike Smith's career and be honest with yourself, you can say this isn't going to work.
Right.
And what happened in the end? It was terrible, and they ran him out of town with pitchforks.
And look, the reason teams don't do it is because it costs assets. You're forced to spend assets that you didn't want to spend. And again, if the Avs could have their way, would they have given up all the picks and the prospect that they did for Darcy Kemper? No, they would have probably liked to keep Connor Timmins. But that's the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
And I just don't think the Oilers have taken that cost of doing business seriously. At several different points in this build. And again, if they come back and win 4 straight games, I'll eat my words and say Stuart Skinner, has a future as a number 1. Matthias Ekholm really stepped up and was able to show, hey, I can be a Stanley Cup winning number 1. But right now they've got a 90-degree angle hill to climb to get back to that point. And through the first 3 games, they have shown they don't have any climbing gear with them.
Yeah, let's see them go get Patrick Laine now and tell themselves that that's a perfect fit.
Right? And he'll score a bunch of goals. He would score a bunch of goals there. But Stuart Skinner would let in one for everyone that goes in the other way.
Yeah, so as you said, 25-26 is Connor McDavid's last year under contract. That could potentially be his last year as an Edmonton Oiler, because it sounds like he's going to draw the line somewhere as well.
Well, and like I said, you want to see what they do here in the final 4 games of this series. How much are they able to push back and how much are they able to show? Because if they go out like this, I think it really raises some question marks about the sustainability of this roster. And, how good are they actually? And how much was it a product of, man, oh man, they got put on a great path to the Stanley Cup final.
And they play in the worst division in hockey.
Without a doubt. Let's open up some hockey cards.
As we wrap up here.
So, what?
You said you wanted to touch on Cap Friendly.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Should we save it?
Yeah, let's save it, because that'll be something that's relevant
and
for a while.
Yeah.
I got some hockey cards. Like, we've been talking about cards and how fun it is to open up packs of cards, and I used to do this endlessly as a kid.
I still do this every time I'm at Target. I look in the card aisle to see if there's any hockey cards, and I buy a pack or sometimes a box, depending on how I'm feeling that day.
Yeah.
And I'm usually underwhelmed, right? I'm always like, oh, maybe this is my lucky day to get that $1 million card or whatever.
My biggest thing is, like, I would need someone to tell me, like, ooh, that's a really, like, I feel like with hockey cards, I would have a pretty good idea, like, should probably hold on to that.
And I end up with a Mike Smith card. Or a Tomas Hertl. Like, this is a guy that I feel like I get in every pack of cards I ever buy.
Woo!
All right.
I got a Jonas Donskoy, the Cheddar. It's shaped like a piece of cheese.
Man, that has to be
something. Oh, wait. That is not Jonas Donskoy. It's 72 for the Sharks.
William Eklund.
Yeah, wow. I'm way off on
I
that.
can read that from here. You can't read that in front of your face.
I saw 72 Sharks, and I was like, wow, old card. That's kind of cool.
All right, you go first.
All right, so I got the Cheddar.
That's
William
a cool card.
Eklund. I think it's a cool card.
I wish it was a better player.
Tom Wilson.
All right.
Jamie Benn in the Tron jerseys. Philip Deneau. Chrome Bucket.
These are old, aren't they?
21-22.
Ah, yeah. You said that already?
Yeah. Joe Veleno. I wanted the Avs to take him instead of Martin Kaut. Womp womp. Tim Stützle. That's a good one. And Andrzej Kopitar in this one.
All right. I got Tyler Bertuzzi, still in a Red Wings uniform.
All right.
Sebastian Aho, the Carolina version.
Okay.
Mo Sider. You know, I don't
That's a
know.
good one.
Kind of looks like a special card, right?
Yeah.
Jonathan Taves. We hardly knew ye.
This Mo Sider one's sick.
Alexander Holtz prospect card for the New Jersey Devils.
All right.
Robin Leonard
Wow.
in a Vegas
And a reverse retro.
red, yeah. And then finally Tomas Hertl. So classic pack of cards for me of
I'm
just
pretty
a
stoked on
bunch of
this one.
mediocre guys and mediocre cards. This is very typical of my hockey card career. But look how many red jerseys I got in that pack.
I was
My
actually going to
goodness.
comment on that. That was a red heavy pack for you.
Yeah.
The cheddar. This is a fun
That
one.
is a fun card. I just wish it was a cooler player, right?
Yeah. But I think we're gonna get a binder that we're gonna keep here somewhere on the set, and we're gonna open cards sporadically as we just get them and find packs and boxes, and I think it's so fun to just see what's in there.
I agree. I
So
do
we'll
have
keep-
fun with them, and I'm always like, dang, that could have been more fun. But
Well, it's a little bit like gambling. It's like, all right, this is the hand for me where I truly clean up and
this is where I hit a 10-game parlay.
Yeah,
Today's the day you lose game one, right?
You and I had I think it was when we did the one Eastern Conference Final watch along, and I had some crazy like 7-leg parlay. I got to the end of it, I was like, I feel like those are all pretty realistic though. And then we were laughing because that's what every single person says after they place any kind of parlay. I was like, yeah, but no, these picks are like.
I could see
I feel
this
like that could
happening.
happen.
Yeah.
I was a Matthew Tkachuk goal away from hitting a plus 1,500 parlay last night, 4-leg parlay. Needed that. I was hoping he'd get like an empty netter, but he didn't even play the last 2 minutes of the game. It was a bummer.
That's the way it should go.
Yeah, we are going to talk about the cap friendly thing at some point here coming up. Maybe we'll wait till after free agency when all of that kind of happens. But it sounds like the great website Cap Friendly is going away. So
What an
that'll really-
opportunity for somebody who knows what they're doing to recreate it,
Mhm.
rip off and duplicate R&D.
Yeah, that's gonna because it's gonna be a huge void left. That's gonna really suck. But hopefully someone comes in and picks up the pieces. I know Puckpedia is out there that they do good work, but
I know I have no idea how to do that, but if I did, that's what I'd be working on this summer.
we'll talk about that because I think there's a lot of implications there. And truthfully, I'm pretty annoyed and pissed off by it. So we'll talk about that more later. But for today, I think that's it. Yeah, Friday. Enjoy the weekend. We'll be back at it. Large changes coming to Guerilla Sports next week in terms of our content schedule, production plan. So really exciting stuff that you guys will all hear about on Monday. So on Monday, we'll talk to you again. For JJ, I'm Jesse. We got Jay behind the glass running the board. Make sure you guys can see us and hear us. So thank you guys so much. Enjoy the day. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you guys on Monday.